From scripted terrors to relentless hunters, we rank every one of Resident Evil's stalkers by how effectively they pursue you. Resident Evil thrives on tension through dimly lit corridors, ammo scarcity, and a rarity of health-restoring herbs. Foreboding is the series' lifeblood, yet nothing unsettles the balance quite like the franchise's gauntlet of stalking pursuers. These assailants aren't just boss fights, no. A true Resident Evil pursuer actively hunts you, often unkillable or effectively so during its chase phase. Intruding on exploration, they devolve navigation into something disruptive, aggravating, and hostile. From early experiments to genre-defining designs, here are Resident Evil's most notable pursuers ranked from least to most effective. Lisa Trevor, Resident Evil 2002. Unlike Resident Evil's usual stalkers, Lisa Trevor is more of a psychological intrusion. Unable to be killed by conventional means, instead she forces you to retreat across numerous locations within the Arklay Mountains and Spencer Mansion catacombs in Resident Evil Remake. Her 2002 debut expands the original RE's story with gut-wrenching tragedy, positioning her, unusually, in RE stalker lore as a victim more than a villain. You see, after decades of experimentation, Lisa is left feral and heartbroken, your final meeting being less of a boss encounter and more of a mercy mission. She'll appear again for Albert Wesker in Resident Evil Chronicles, where her death is played out, although outsider theories suggest that Resident Evil Requiem's wall-scrambling shambler is none other than Lisa herself. Morpheus, Resident Evil Dead Aim. While not as mechanically sophisticated as the RE pursuers that come chronologically earlier, Morpheus in Resident Evil Dead Aim was an early example of the series' willingness to embrace theatricality and flamboyance, particularly in its antagonists. The stalker in this light gun gimmicked spin-off is made all the more memorable by their narcissistic pursuit of physical perfection, staving death by injecting the experimental T plus G virus, transforming into a towering, electromagnetic-powered tyrant who proved impossible to kill via conventional weaponry during select segments. In these pursuer phases, they actively hunt you through interconnected ship compartments, creating a sense of sustained pressure, which later entries would then iterate on. Axeman, Tyrant-R, Resident Evil Outbreak File Number 2. Outbreak File Number 2's scenario-based structure birthed a handful of persistent yet unkillable threats. For one, the zoo-based Wild Thing scenario challenges you to outfox a leaping zombie lion that is impervious to gunfire. But elsewhere, Axeman is much more persistent. The pursuer of the flashback scenario chases you through the hospital section. He can't be killed outright, but you can retaliate just enough for him to back off before reappearing. Then, appearing in the end of the road scenario to roundhouse kick you is Tyrant-R, the final form of the mass-produced Mr. X-type tyrant. Tyrant-R produces the game's biggest stress, swinging its talons and jagged edges, bringing your escape from Raccoon City's annihilation down to the wire. Thanatos/thanatos-r, Resident Evil Outbreak. Thanatos, and after having one arm blown off and the other mutilated, Thanatos-R is a unique specimen among the battery of tyrants that Umbrella released into Raccoon City the night of its downfall. Bioengineered by rogue scientist Greg Mueller, Thanatos never turns on its creator. Insubordination problems were typical of the other tyrants, but instead goes rampaging on his order. Again, your bullets will bounce, but this guy can at least be incapacitated by electric cables. The final showdown with Thanatos-R is a tighter, seemingly inescapable arena. Just as well, there's a crashed army supplies truck with a rocket launcher in the corner. It's a predictable outcome for what, in another Resident Evil game, would have been a stellar pursuer. Lady Dimitrescu, Resident Evil Village. What were we saying about theatricality and flamboyance? Well, few Resident Evil villains cultivate a following quite like Lady D. Her operatic silhouette, her bellowing command, her claws. She's simply unforgettable. Yet as a stalker-type presence ranked within the gamut of RE stalker-type presences, well, she's middling. Sure, Village's Castle Dimitrescu section is exquisitely designed and paced, and for brief moments the lady's presence punches with unstoppable force, but mechanically her patrols, speed, and logic become predictable. Alas, somewhere along the way Lady Dimitrescu loses her intensity, making the fear she instilled an aesthetic memory, rather than being the truly disruptive, hostile encounter that we expected at her intro. Verdugo, Resident Evil 4 Remake, 2023. While not a traditional Resident Evil stalker type, before entering into a direct fight, Verdugo patiently shadows you, emerging from vents, swiping its tail, and resisting any damage that you throw at it. This segment is brief, but it's masterfully executed, distilling stalker design to its purest form, showing that sustaining pressure in tight spaces while denying safe escape truly is the most effective way to hair-raising tension. Ustanak, Resident Evil 6. Arguably the most aggressive pursuer throughout the entire franchise, Ustanak tracks Jake and Sherry across multiple time zones in Resident Evil 6's explosive campaign. His encounters make for a rare bright spot in the uneven 6th entry, from the warehouse ambush to the relentless subterranean cave pursuit, all via a mid-air chopper-to-chopper gun show. One thing you can't accuse Ustanak of is dropping momentum. Even through some of the game design's more repetitive segments, the one after another valve doors for instance, there is palpable tension with Ustanak pounding behind every slammed door. In a Resident Evil game which struggles to maintain a sense of foreboding, Ustanak briefly restores it through his predatory intent. Jack Baker, Resident Evil 7. Jack Baker is terrifying in a different way. He feels like someone you could know. He's crude, vulgar, and violent, yes, but he doesn't feel like a monster. His presence is all the more disturbing by his gleefulness, like he takes pleasure in hounding intruders with a shovel. His sequences are masterful representations of that thing that Resident Evil does so well. You know, the caustic cut between tension and relief. You think you've given him the slip and boom, he charges through a plasterboard wall. There's genuine unpredictability here, which, given RE7 preceded RE2's remake of Mr. X by 2 years, many players were not used to or didn't know how to react with free-roaming stalker behavior. If only Jack was in the game more. Nemesis, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. The original Nemesis was a watershed moment for survival horror. Now there was a threat that could appear at any moment, pursue you across multiple areas, even follow you between rooms. Crucially, while the RE ingredients outlined earlier, the dim lights, scarce resources, tiptoeing exploration, still provide an illusion of safety, even just a modicum, especially when assessed with footsteps or whatever other sounds are scratching in the dark, none of this exists with Nemesis. The illusion is shattered. Nemesis rewrote the survival rulebook. His sudden entrances forced meaningful split-second decision-making that weaponized itself in-game and across multiple titles that followed. True, compared to modern standards, his sequences are probably best remembered than relived, but for historical significance, the original Nemesis is truly hard to beat. Mr. X T00, Resident Evil 2, 2019. Mr. X is the definitive Resident Evil pursuer, ticking all of the boxes that we've outlined already, and then some. He takes the blueprint Nemesis established 20 years earlier and evolves it to terrifying effect. He forces you to rethink navigation, to question which route you're going to take. He demands that you manage your resources, identify safe rooms, check the volume of your footsteps and door closes. His RCPD arrival is less about being a new enemy to evade and more an omnipotent presence that has taken over. You can hear his ominous footsteps echoing throughout the station as he marauds from door to door, searching for you, Leon, Claire, anyone, and any survivor, relentlessly, ruthlessly, unstoppable.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.